taste is the Pinterest, because they are the best.
Just version.
Absolutely, yes. There was and it still happens to this day, when people go to a particular country, usually a foreign country to themselves, they talk to the people there and try to persuade them to change their religion. Persuade, not force, I should add. These people are on a mission. They call them missionaries.
Okay, so our next word.
Okay, so let's go to the Mirror. NASA hails SpaceX private moon venture and says it's going to help.
So venture, meaning a new activity, usually a business activity.
Yeah, it's often used in business contexts when a business decides to do something new, often costing a lot of money. They call it a business venture. Yeah. And it kind of it's very related to the word adventure, yes, which means an exciting, new, sometimes dangerous, risky activity,
yeah,
which often new businesses have all that in common. They're exciting, they're risky, yeah, they're dangerous, potentially, but with a potential for great benefit.
Yeah, and in this story, it could be two things, couldn't it? It could be a venture as in an adventure to travel to the moon, but also because SpaceX is a private company, it's a business. It's a business, it's an opportunity for the person who has established this company to make a load of money.
Absolutely, and NASA are calling, it's described in this headline as a private moon venture, so both meanings are really valid in this one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's also used as a verb, to venture.
Yes.
With a slightly different meaning, related to risk or unpleasantness.
Yeah, well, most unpleasantness, and it's a kind of fixed phrase, to venture outside. So imagine, Neil, it's 9 o'clock at night, it's December, it's cold, it's wet, it's rainy, but you really want to go and get some ice cream.
Yes.
Yeah, so you put your coat on, and you say to your family,
I'm going to venture outside.
Yeah.
Some ice cream.
And they say, you must be crazy.
That's right. Next, we have manned. What's the headline?
Okay, so today's Metro tells us that SpaceX to send 2 people on manned mission around the moon next year.
So manned here, meaning controlled by people. But, Catherine, I'm confused because we don't know the gender, we don't know the sex of the people that are going to be involved, that are going to be controlling this spacecraft, so why manned?
Yeah, why not womaned or peopled, indeed? Yeah. So this is an example of, in English language, male gender vocabulary, which is applied to both genders.
Yeah.
So there are different words we can use. In this case, the crew, we don't know if the crew will be male or female, so we could say, instead of manned, we could say crewed.
Because there's nothing in the word crew which suggests either male or female.
Exactly that, yes. And language is changing. It's quite, in some ways, it's quite old-fashioned to use the word men or man to mean men and or women.
Yeah.
So in a business context, for example, in our working environment, we can say it is staffed by 200 people rather than manned by 200 people. So whilst the meaning is clear, if you want to use gender non-specific vocabulary, there are different words. We can use staffed, we can use crewed, we can use peopled.
Yeah.
There are other ways we can say instead of manned.
We can, and the trend is towards that, and it is considered offensive by quite a lot of people to use gender-specific vocabulary.
A lot of workplaces these days have rules about this, the kind of language which is more equal, which reflects more clearly the fact that both men and women do this particular job. So instead of man, they'll say things like stuffed.
Well, before we recap on the vocabulary we've looked at today, we have, of course, our Facebook challenge. There is a moon idiom, which means hardly ever. Now, is it A, once in a full moon, B, once in a blue moon, or once in a red moon? What kind of response did we have?
Okay, well, moons can indeed be full red or blue. We had a great response. Most people got the right answer, which is B, once in a blue moon, which means not very often. So well done, Saim Zai, Neha Birla, and Jahanzeb Khan, and everybody else who said B once in a blue moon.
Okay, and just a recap then of our vocabulary.
Yes, we had mission, which here means a flight into space. Venture is a new and often risky business activity, and manned, which means staffed or controlled by people.
If you would like to test yourself on today's vocabulary, there's a quiz you can take on our website, bbclearningenglish.com, where you can find all sorts of other videos and activities to help you improve your English. Thank you. Join us again. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
News review from BBC Learning.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link, a link to flick.
It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. And on the show today, ideas about questions. So, to get us started, here's a question.
What if everyone jumped at once?
That is, what if everyone on the planet jumped?
In the same place on Earth?
What would happen? Could we, shake the planet? Well, it's the kind of question you can't really answer without asking more questions. But first, Michael, a quick question for you, which is, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Michael Stevens. I'm the creator of the Vsauce Educational Network on YouTube and the host of one of its channels, Vsauce 1.
Okay, where were we?
If all of us were to get together in one location and all jump 30 centimeters into the air at the exact same time, Earth would only move away from us about 1/100th of the width of a single hydrogen atom.
This is Michael Stevens answering this very question on his YouTube channel, where he basically devotes all his time and energy to asking all kinds of questions.
What about the 5-second rule? Is that true?
The 5-second rule may be true if we rename it the 1 femtosecond rule.
I've investigated that one. Sometimes the questions are really funny, but actually very profound. Like, why do we call it our bottom if it's in the middle of our body?
Good question.
What's going on here is probably a combination of torso-centric thinking and euphemism. Bottom is a nice word for a sometimes dirty part, and...
Now, the thing about Michael Stevens is he's not a scientist. He's kind of a professional inquirer and really good at explaining complicated ideas.
I am a rabbit hole chasing kind of person.
Yeah.
I was never a genius student, and I am even further from a genius today. The more I've learned and read, the more I realize that I don't know what I'm talking about. But at the most, I can just say that I'm curious and that I love sharing things that fascinate me and hopefully are contagiously fascinating.
And each time he starts to go down that rabbit hole, Michael unlocks another question, and then another, and another. Now, think about this for a moment. Not that long ago, the ability to ask and then answer big questions wasn't something everyone could do, right? You needed access to lots and lots of information, you needed the training to find what you were looking for, but in a very short span of time, most humans on the planet have witnessed this giant technological leap that spread that access everywhere. I mean, just think about your smartphone. In your hand, you can connect to an infinite reservoir of knowledge. And it means that anyone with a sense of curiosity can tap into it, which is why Michael Stevens can do what he does, as he demonstrated on the TED stage.
Here's a question. This speech is live. I'm actually here in front of you guys. We're all here together. But this speech is being recorded, and it will become a video that people can access all over the world on computers, mobile devices, televisions. I weigh about 190 pounds. How much will the video weigh? Well, when you stream a video onto your computer, that information is temporarily stored using electrons. And the number of electrons on your device won't actually increase or decrease, but it takes energy to store them in one place. And we know, thanks to our friend Albert Einstein, that energy and mass are related. Assuming a typical bit rate, we can figure that a minute of YouTube video is going to need to involve about 10 million electrons on your device. plugging all of those electrons and the energy it takes to hold them in the correct place for you to see the video into that formula, we can figure out that 1 minute of YouTube video increases the mass of your computer by about 10 to the negative 19th grams. You could call that nothing and you wouldn't really get in trouble, because the best scales we've ever invented that we could try to use to actually detect that change are only accurate to 10 to the negative 9th grams. So we can't measure it, but we can, like we just did, calculate it. And that's really cool, because with numbers that small, I can fit thousands of books on my own little personal electronic reader. I can stream hours and hours and days of YouTube video without my computer ever getting measurably heavier. And as information becomes that light, it becomes a lot more democratic, meaning that more teachers and presenters and creators and viewers than ever.
It's the TED Radio Hour from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. And on the show today, ideas about the spirit of inquiry. And when it comes to the unknown on any subject, we're all kind of trained to seek out experts.
The model of the expert, which has dominated our intellectual life for a century now, is not a model of inquiry at all.
This is Liz Coleman.
It's a model of command. It's a model of knowing more than the other person. It's a model in which what the expert does is what matters, and the job of the, quote, student is to absorb.
Liz was president of Bennington College in Vermont for more than 25 years, and she argues that we've lost this desire to be interested in many different things because we live in an age where the expert is king.
It's not easy when a system is built on that version of accomplishment, when narrowing your sights is treated as a virtue. We all use the language of experts and of separating things.
Here's how Liz Coleman put it on the TED stage.
The progression of today's college student is to jettison every interest except one. And within that one, to continually narrow the focus, learning more and more about less and less. This, despite the evidence all around us of the interconnectedness of things. As one moves up the ladder, values other than technical competence are viewed with increasing suspicion. Questions such as, what kind of a world are we making? What kind of a world should we be making? What kind of a world can we be making? Are treated with more and more skepticism and move off the table.
Liz Coleman says that by narrowing the focus of our questions, we lose out on how they connect to the big ones. And without people thinking about the big questions, there will be consequences. Take, for example, climate change.
So we have this absurd idea that the scientists should figure out what's wrong with the situation vis-a-vis the environment, and then they hand it over to the politicians that are supposed to figure out what to do. Until the thinking and the action become inseparable, we're not going to get where we need to get.
When you think about the people who discover things, right? The people who we depend on for information, and most of those people are academics or researchers. But then you think about the people who, I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, like 360-degree people who could really communicate a variety of ideas, Renaissance people in sort of the modern age. I can think of like Richard Feynman or Stephen Jay Gould or Neil deGrasse Tyson or Vera Rubin. Right. They stand out because they felt like they could talk about literature and science and the cosmos and philosophy all at the same time.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And one of the most intriguing things about that almost all...
Flick to link, a link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because